Great. Beautiful sunshine, beautiful Monday morning. So welcome to Frank Talks. In case anybody's wondering, it's Monday, April 14th, which means tomorrow is tax day. Who still has to file their taxes? Okay, John. Yes. So it's nice to see you. I'm Mindy Tate, CEO of Franklin Tomorrow, and so welcome today. I think we have a number of first-time attendees. If you're a first-time attendee, raise your hand. Look at that. That's great. We're excited. Yay. So just so you know, Frank Talks is one of our continuing programs. We hold this on the second Monday of each month, unless it's a holiday, and there are Monday holidays. We hold it the second Monday of each month at various locations across the community, because part of this is the experience of coming to a new location. So how many people have never been to this Columbia State campus? Okay, so there's some people who, if you'd like, Mary Beth or others will give you a tour of the building, or as much as you need to learn, but there's a lot happening here at what is the fastest growing and largest community college in the state of Tennessee. We're very proud of this facility, and we're very proud of the way they host us and are open to the community for these events. So we have Frank Talks on the second Monday of the month, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the other things that we have going on in a few minutes, but I'm going to call up my friend Nancy Conway. Where'd she go? There she is. She's got a Did You Know? Now, I'm going to show you what the prize is for the first correct answer, because it's really cool. Thank you, the Visit Franklin folks, for the door prize today. Look at this cup. Ooh, ooh. Now, if you don't win, you can buy this at the Visitor Center on 4th Avenue. And if you should happen to leave it, don't call me, because I won't be the one who has it or anything. But this is the prize, and Nancy Conway is going to give us our Did You Know question.
Thank you, Mindy, and good morning, everyone. And we appreciate you taking the time to be here and be a part of this program. It's fantastic to have the speakers that we have today. Now, whoever answers the question correctly first is the winner of the prize. Okay. And Mindy's already told you that Visit Franklin gave the prize today, which we are most appreciative. Each year, once a year, the state of Tennessee, through the Tennessee Department of Tourism, gives each county a number ranking. This is based on the economic impact of your visitors. The quiz question is, what is the current economic state ranking? What is that number currently?
Oh, back in the back. 6.
That is correct. And you know, if I remember correctly, you are a student here at Columbia State? Yes. And a hospitality major? No wonder she answered it.
Thank you so much. Franklin Tomorrow is celebrating our 25th anniversary this year, and we could not do what we do as a community engagement and visioning organization without the support of our partners. And we have 3 sustaining partners in our organization, and they are Atmos Energy, and we appreciate how involved they are in the community. Reagan Smith, which is a Pape Dawson company, And finally, Williamson Health. And Greg Broy is here to talk a little bit about something going on at Williamson Medical and Health.
We've got a couple things we wanted to share with you. Good morning. On behalf of the 2,300 employees of Williamson Health, we are delighted to be here. Two things. Number one, last week we raised a flag, Donate Life. It's Donate Life Month, and we want to recognize the incredible generosity of donors and their families in this important gift of life. Please consider donating organs upon your passing by going to Tennessee Donor Services and be sure that you're an organ donor. You can save lives. We've personally seen how this makes a difference at Williamson Health. Secondly, we're going to take a look at our maternal fetal medicine program. We are delighted to welcome Dr. Michael DeRoche and Dr. Chelsea Clinton. They're here to help patients who need a little bit of extra assistance with complicated pregnancies. So let's take a look at our maternal fetal medicine program.
Maternal fetal medicine is a subspecialty of obstetrics. We're OBGYNs, but we have additional training in complicated pregnancies and ultrasound. How we function is to help support the obstetricians, where if they have a complicated pregnancy that they need help on, if they would like to figure out the appropriate time for delivery, if somebody is in preterm labor and we help stop delivery, we're helping with all these complications.
We're treating conditions in a woman who's pregnant and in the baby who is in the womb. If we are seeing mom, it's usually for her age in pregnancy or another medical complication she has, like diabetes or high blood pressure. We are seeing babies for heart defects or other birth defects. And sometimes we'll see people even before they're pregnant to address complications that they have that may put a pregnancy at risk.
Oftentimes we are the ones to give potentially bad news. In some ways we function as the oncologist that might be diagnosing cancer, but we're diagnosing potentially pregnancy issues or fetal issues. We
get to deal with women and their families in a very intimate and sometimes really scary time. It can be a really challenging, emotional, stressful moment that we can really hold people's hands and guide them through and give them that information that they need and that some reassurance and referrals and just sort of help be a member of their supportive community during what can be a really challenging time for people.
Thank you so much. We are so lucky to have a great facility like Williamson Health, Williamson Medical Center here in our community and be a county-owned facility. So also our presenting partner for Frank Talks is Renaissance Bank. We've got Tina and Diane here this morning. And Diane, you have a video, but come up and say something about it before we play the video.
Good morning. Great to see everyone on this Monday. As you know, Renaissance Bank is over 120 years old, and we are proud to be a sponsor of Franklin Tomorrow and Frank Talks. Glad you're here this morning. Hopefully this video doesn't look like your Monday, but if it does, we hope you'll come see us at Renaissance Bank, as we want to make your banking as easy as possible for you. So thank you so much.
Meet Abby. She's new to the city, and she thought it was all going her way. But one bad decision,
I guess this bank will work,
was about to change everything.
You've got to be kidding me.
Now she'll need a little bit of extra magic to get her back on the right path.
What's going on?
I don't know, it's like I'm under some sort of curse.
Broken phone. Car left you stranded.
Doesn't look like fun, huh?
Hi, I'm downtown Danny Dinkler.
Abby?
And I'm
Are
here
you
to
there?
tell you about a singular
Hold on,
thought with a
call you back.
That's when she found out what she needed most in an unexpected way. And a little extra she didn't know she deserved. from the bank that brought you Renaissance Rewards Extra.
That's great. That's fun. Has anybody know who Craig Hoover is? I mean, is that Craig Hoover or what? I mean, I think, and it looks exactly like him. That's scary. I'm going to have to tell him about that. Thank you to the Lion Leadership Group, who is our coffee sponsor each month, and for some of the other events that we do. Who knows about the fact that there's a Franklin City election later this year in October? Yay, okay. Who's registered to vote? Go ahead and get that done if you're not already registered to vote. But we, 2 years ago, when there was an election, did an I Voted sticker design contest for both youth and adults. And we have launched that again and would love for people to be part of that. There's some forms out on the table there, but also we have this online. The deadline is May 30th. We'll be pushing you all in the next few months to do something with this. It's loads of fun, and the Election Commission has been great in using these. They love having them there for people to pick up, and people like the local design. So, and then the community will get to help us select the winners as well. So Breakfast with the Mayors is our next event. It is Tuesday, April 29th at Rolling Hills Community Church. We hope you'll all register. It's a very important topic. And it sounds really boring if you're not thinking about it, but we're going to have Brad Coleman, who is the Williamson County Property Assessor, come and talk to us about the 2025 reappraisal of property that's coming in our community. The value of your home has increased, by the way. Just so you did, in case you didn't know that, and that's nobody's fault except people love living here. It's a beautiful community, so the value of your property has increased. And so what's coming in May is a letter from Brad, the property assessor, kind of giving you a heads up for what's going to happen in the fall when you get your new tax bill. So it'll be a great chance to understand and learn about this process, but also we'll be talking with Karen Paris, who is the trustee for the county, and she'll be talking about relief programs that exist for those who are of a mature age. So we'll be talking about that, but it's a very important topic. Also, Breakfast with the Mayors is loads of fun. We have about 300 or 350 people for that event. Free breakfast from Puckett's. Who can complain about that? And we would love to have you join us, and you can log into our website, franklintomorrow.org, or you can follow this QR code to register for that event, or just show up if you find yourself available to be there that morning, Tuesday, April 29th. Mayor Moore, are you coming? Okay, yeah, you look at your schedule to see if you're able to be there. So we've given away a prize already, but there are prizes for everyone out in the hallway. Maureen Thornton and her staff have brought some coffee cups and some stickers for you to pick up, as well as some discount coupons for visiting some of our favorite Williamson County tourism sites. So be sure and pick those up as you leave today. And I'm going to start by asking Eric Jacobson, who's the CEO of the Battle of Franklin Trust, to come forward. There's a mic right there, and talk to us a little bit about tourism as it relates to the historic sites and the exciting groundbreaking we had just a week or two ago that has been how many years in the making? I can't imagine. A lot. It's on, I think, but...
Test, there we go.
Yeah. So, but Eric Jacobson, CEO of Battle of Franklin Trust, and he'll explain to you what that is. And then we'll have Maureen talking about giving us a tourism report and update. So thank you, Eric.
This is when I ask Mindy again, what do you want me to talk about? All right. Well, she mentioned the groundbreaking. I guess we can start with that. I told Nancy Conway, who was on this adventure with us at Carter House for quite some time, that I'd started working on that project when I was in my 30s, and I'm not in my 30s anymore. It's been, officially over 15 years, but the project itself is probably 25 years in the making. The current Carter House Visitor Center was constructed in the early 1980s, so it has far outlived its lifespan. And so we went through creating a master plan with the state. We got an initial funding from the General Assembly because while the Carter House is owned by the state, it's managed by the Battle of Franklin Trust. And so we have to get the money for the building from the state. Went out to bid, didn't quite have enough. Then COVID wrecked the world for a while. Then we got a separate allocation. Then inflation wrecked everything in a secondary kind of way, and we had to get a third allocation. So eventually, what was a few $1 million project turned into $8 million. But we put it out for bid. The state put it out for bid. We have a great contractor, Barron Construction, based out of Nashville, and the groundbreaking ceremony was a few weeks ago. This will be about a 9,500 square foot building, 2 stories, built very close to, I'm assuming most everybody knows where the existing one is, between it and Folk Street. So it'll be built into the hill, so you enter at ground level, you'll come out the back, and actually walk onto the battlefield and see the Carter House and other historic structures. So it's really the culmination of a lot of work by a lot of different people. I'm not, although I have, like most of us, political opinions, I don't particularly care for politics. It's a sort of a game that just sort of turns me off in many ways. But I'm fascinated by it nonetheless because I deal in the world of history, so politics is always part of us, but we had to deal with multiple layers of politics. And, people like Charles Sargent, who was our state rep for a long time, passed away a number of years ago. He was so instrumental. Sam Whitson, who served the area for many years, was influential. And also Lee Reeves, who was just recently elected, has been very helpful in steering some things in the right direction. So this is going to be not just a visitor center that allows us to talk about the Carter family and the Battle of Franklin, because quite honestly, we do that every day of the week. I mean, if you come take a tour, that's what you're going to hear. It's 7 days a week. That's what we do. This visitor center increases staff and storage spaces. I mean, there's not sufficient space right now for all of the archival material that we have. So this serves a lot, and also there's more than one bathroom for each sex, so that's really cool. Especially, when you have 100 people on a bus or something, or a bunch of, a gaggle of school children. So it allows us to do a lot. And I'll finish by saying that when it opens, the museum and the exhibit area will not be open. And the reason why is because I did not want anyone involved with government dictating interpretive policy, because that's what we do. And so we took it upon ourselves to raise money, and I think some of you have already contributed to that. We're going to spend about $500,000 building out the museum and exhibit space. We'll inherit an empty room, but over the course of probably 90 to 120 days, because we'll have everything built, and then it's just an installation process once we open the visitor center. And that first exhibit, which will last, probably 18 or 24 months, is going to be incredibly profound. The theme is one that's very simple. All men are created equal. And we chose that. Some of you might be thinking, what does it have to do with the Civil War? Everything. It has everything to do with the Civil War, because we're going to take people on a trip from the founding of the country and those words within the Declaration of Independence, which were the moral bedrock of the country, and a promise that by 1861 we had not yet even remotely come close to living up to, because there were 4 million enslaved people. 275,000 of them live right here in Tennessee, and 11,000 were right here in Williamson County. And we have got to confront this head on, because that is the reason that by 1861, when the president issued his first inaugural address, we stood on the precipice of a terrible war that would cost us almost 750,000 lives. And that's going to be a secondary part of our interpretation that will complement the tours that we give every day. And I would be remiss, even though this doesn't have anything to do with the visitor center, what happened today? Did anyone, so I don't have gifts for you, but here's your quiz. What happened today 160 years ago? What happened on April 14th, 1865? Right. Look at that. He gets a prize. The president and his wife went to the theater tonight, and an assassin killed him. Just days earlier, one of the two major Confederate armies had finally surrendered, and the country was plunged into the abyss yet again, having never dealt with an assassination. These are all important things that we talk about, and not just at Carter House, at Carnton and at Rippavilla, which we've now managed for 4 years. So that's really it on the groundbreaking. We are always busy. I told former Spring Hill Mayor Rick Graham, who's sitting in the back, that I'll be in front of the Spring Hill Board of Mayor and Aldermen in May talking about a long-term contract to manage that site. But as if we're not crazy enough, I'm going to pitch the idea about building a visitor center there. So we just go from one visitor center to another, and telling this story, which I think is as important today as ever. In a world where it often seems like we're so terribly divided, I assure you we're nowhere near where we were in the 1850s and the 1860s. But that we have, in just a year, we will have endured for 250 years. You know, think about that by next year, right before the 250th anniversary of the release of the Declaration, we're going to open this visitor center with that theme to talk to people about how the Civil War almost destroyed our opportunity to be who we have become, good, bad, or indifferent. And there's much more good than there's bad. But we have to talk about those things, which I think helps us better appreciate the world that we live in today. Because for all of its imperfections, this is a great community, it's a great state, it's a great country. And so we're gonna try and, education. It's what we do. We're not just reciting facts. We're not just telling you about this person and that person as if they're some abstract thing. We don't just wallow in the bloodshed of the battle. We want you to understand. We want everyone to understand why this is important. And since about 3/4 of the guests who visit the houses, which now are north of about 85 or 90,000 a year, there's a huge economic impact. Because guess what these people do? They spend tons of money. They shop, they eat, they stay in hotels, and it really, I don't live in Williamson County, so I've already had my real estate taxes adjusted, but one thing to keep in mind, I wouldn't want Brad's job right now. My job's gonna be way more fun than him have to answer those questions, but the economic impact reduces everyone's tax liability as well, and that is, that's a positive.
So we all, if you've lived in Franklin, we know about the Carter House, or we think we know about the Carter House, and we know about Carnton. Rippavilla seems like it's more than the probably 15 miles south of Carnton that it is, but you've had some exciting discoveries there in the last few months. And just tell us this quickly about Rippavilla and why we should make the journey, how many miles south to visit that home.
Well, Rippavilla is directly connected to everything that we do, just like it was connected to the fabric of this area in the 1850s and the 1860s. I mean, the Chairs family that lived there, like the McGavicks and the Carters. See, the Carter House doesn't really give you an indication of how wealthy the Carters were. I think it's often thought about that they were sort of modest. Fountain Branch Carter owned 28 slaves and was worth, today be a multi-millionaire. But the Chairs who lived at Rippavilla, I mean, there's wealthy and then there's really wealthy. The Chairs owned 1,100 acres, 75 slaves, growing, the same things that were growing on here, a lot of corn, grain, livestock, but also cotton. There's two things that connect it. It's not just the fabric of Middle Tennessee and of the Old South, but the Battle of Spring Hill, which unfolded near Rippavilla, is what sets the stage for the Battle of Franklin. But what we have been doing at Rippavilla is, unlike Carter House and Carnton, which have been relatively established products, for a number of years, although we find new things all the time. Rippavilla had only been open to the public in the late 90s. And it had always struggled financially, which is why ultimately the city of Spring Hill, through Mayor Graham's leadership, took on ownership of the site, but with the understanding that it needed to be sustainable. Well, that sustainability just didn't happen. So enter us. And I went to our board and said, there's no other house in the area that ties in to what we do every day like Rippavilla does. And we all know the growth in this area from Nashville to Franklin to Spring Hill to Columbia is not stopping. And that corridor and that intersection of the past with the present is ripe with abundant opportunities. And if we can build a visitor center there, I figure I've got about 10 years left. That's because I don't want to do this until I'm like 75 years old, but I say that now and I'll change my mind in 10 years. We want to build a visitor center there because we want people to understand the history of this area, early Tennessee history, early Murray and Williamson County history, and what it all means. And that people like the Chairs, they didn't just live in that pre-war and wartime world. Like the McGavicks, they lived in the post-war world for a long, long time. They saw at the time, it was considered by many people radical social change, which is so tied to race. And I think one of the most important, and I don't know if important is the right word, we found out early on that Nat Chairs had fathered a child with an enslaved woman before he was married. Now, this is not surprising to those of us who do this work, but to follow that man's story, who later became a U.S. soldier, a USCT, and that he and Nat knew one another is also part of the history of Rippavilla. So I can't imagine what that place could be in a decade or 20 years, but I remember seeing Carnton and Carter House 20 years ago and 30 years ago. They're not the same. They're visited by more people than ever. So there's much opportunity. And if we get 31 ever widened.
Yeah, good luck with that.
But you can take Lewisburg Pike as well. So, there's lots of ways to get there.
But you dug around in some fields recently and made a pretty exciting discovery.
Cornerstone? Mm-hmm. Oh, the Cornerstone was wild. So several years ago, South Star approached the city about a pretty significant development, which is now called Legacy Point. And I was introduced to them by the, is it mayor-elect? Is that what we call him if he's not yet sworn in? Mayor-elect Matt Fitterer, who's on the board, introduced me to Glenn McGee from South Star. And Glenn came straight out and said, if there was a piece of this property, which is sort of north of Saturn Parkway, so it's a little north of Rippavilla, if there was a piece of this you could save, what would it be? So I pointed to where some of the heaviest fighting during the Battle of Spring Hill unfolded. Eventually, we're going to get about 12 or 13 acres based on that conversation for free. Well, if you can get free land around here, that's a good deal. Take it. But what I did was I'm now working on my 4th book. So I'm in like 550 pages into this thing, which is about the Chairs in Rippavilla and this world they lived in. And I was doing deed work. I was just trying to figure out the boundaries of what was Rippavilla. And I went to the developer and I said, I think there's a cornerstone in this particular spot. And I said, can I go look for it? And he said, sure. I went out there, couldn't find it, got frustrated, went home. And I was like, it's got to be there. I went back the next day. There I am crawling around on my hands and knees, and I found it. And it was incredible. And we were able to, and it was founded a couple of years ago, but we were able to excavate it finally the other day. They got the grading permit and we pulled it out. And the thing's like 4 feet tall. But it's engraved with the initials NFC, Nathaniel Francis Chairs. And this is like what we would consider a modern surveyor's pin, except it's cut limestone and was set in the ground, I think, in the mid-1850s when he was acquiring the last pieces of land that became part of Rippavilla. And to pull it out of the ground and then to save it, and eventually we'll have it on display. I mean, those are the kind of things that, there's only one of those, like ever. And to save it was just wonderful.
And the final question for me is just explain to the group Battle of Franklin Trust. The sites used to be managed individually or separately, but why is it important to have that organization, and how does it work with other organizations like Franklin's Charge and other groups like that?
So in the summer of 2008, a handful of us got together at Green's Grocery in Leapers Fork, and I was there, Mary Ann Schroer, Joe Smith, Tom Murdoch, Robert Hicks. And it was the first meeting in which the concept of the Battle of Franklin Trust was discussed. So anybody who knew Robert, he'd pretty much say anything, and he just sort of threw it out there on the table, and then half the people looked ill. Because when you have a small business, a small group of people, people get territorial, they have control issues. And what we were proposing was for them to let go of their stranglehold on history. And that was tough because there were good people at Carter House in Carnton who had done good work for many years, but convincing them, as a student of history, it must have been fun to go to Philadelphia and propose to all these disparate states, we should stop with this Articles of Confederation stuff and we should actually have a constitution. And half the people were like, no, we don't want that. And then the other half were like, but we have to. If we're gonna survive and make this thing really into what it can be as one thing with all these, different but somewhat autonomous parts, we have to come together. Because as a tourist, I remember competing, we shouldn't compete for the same tourism dollar, right? And I remember as a tourist going to the different sites and hearing radically different interpretation, different stories. And that creates conflict, and it creates uncertainty and confusion. Like, why are they saying this, but they're saying this over there? So that was the initial idea, was just to come together. And we did it over the course of a year. We created the Battle of Franklin Trust, which is really, it's a clever name for a 501c3. And over time, the Carter House Association and the Carnton Association were essentially merged up into the trust, so they do not exist. And the third piece, which was Rippavilla Inc., no longer exists. And so that's how we are managing all three. There are discussions, I will tell you, about another house in Spring Hill that may come into the trust fold at some point in the future, which is the other home owned by the Chairs. It was Nat's brother, Martin. Many of you know it as Ferguson Hall, that sits within what is the old Tennessee Children's Home campus. But the city has to acquire that, but I think that if they do, we're the likely managers. So, that's, we have 40 employees. We're open, as I said, almost every 360 days a year. And we truly do, like the Monticellos of the world and even the National Park Service, it's not volunteer-based. These are paid staff. We do run it almost like a business. We just don't have to pay taxes. But I think to bring people together, to bring groups together, and if you're a guest who doesn't live in Franklin and you're visiting and you're spilling money all over the area, and they can buy a ticket and go to all three sites, well, that just serves the interest, I think, of all the sites. And that, 40 and 50 years from now, I think they will be much the beneficiaries of the consolidation.
Any questions for Eric?
Yes.
Earlier in your talk, you used the word slaves. Is it still appropriate to use that term versus enslaved people?
Whether to use the term slaves or enslaved, I think they're interchangeable. I mean, someone who was owned by someone else was a slave, but they were also a person, so they're not a slave forever, just like someone who's a soldier. They're a soldier for a period of time. Now, there are people who were slaves or enslaved their entire life, but anyone obviously lived through the war. But terms like servants, that wasn't cool 20 years ago. But yeah, they're interchangeable. I think it's important to always, when using that term, because some people will say, why do you use the term enslaved? Well, because even while they were a slave, they were always more than that. These were real people, as real as any of us are, living within the confines of one of the most insidious systems ever created.
All men are created equal.
All men are created equal. And I want you to come and see this, because I know some people today It's very in vogue among some to say Jefferson didn't mean it because he owned slaves. And then some people, as they said in 1861, said, well, he didn't mean it. He could have only meant white people. Well, that's not what it says. And the term men doesn't apply just to men. That's vernacular for humanity. Just like when Neil Armstrong stepped foot on the moon, he said that's one small step for man. He wasn't talking about just the guys. Jefferson did mean it. Those people who created that document and embraced it understood their own shortcomings. They were talking about equality granted, as Jefferson said, by a creator. We are different in every respect. There is no two of us in this room that are equal in intellectual capacity, gender, hair, height, weight, whatever. But we are equal in one sense. The problem is that document was created at that time, and the Constitution followed it about 13 years later, and slavery just became the thing that we couldn't ever fix. But we finally had to fight a war to fix it. And I believe it's that document that sets this country in a totally, you want to talk about radicals? That document did something that had never been done in the history of the world. It stated in what was called a self-evident truth, which means it's not an opinion. A creator made us equal. And it allowed us to grow into something that I think is pretty special. And without it, I don't know how the history of the world unfolds, because it wouldn't have been the same without that document.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you. So I'm going to introduce Maureen Thornton, who's the CEO of Visit Franklin, and have her give us a brief update on tourism. So we've heard 85 to 90,000 people visit those sites, but they come for other reasons too, don't they, Maureen?
They come for lots of reasons. I'm not sure how close I can stand to this without making crazy noises. So in the beginning, there was a joke about Eric didn't come with prizes. I had to come with prizes because I have to talk after him, so bear with me. I have PowerPoint slides because I can't just spew forth beautiful stories like that. But Mindy's right, and I'm so pleased to be able to do this today after following Eric, no matter how hard an act he is to follow, because that story and that experience is so interwoven into the experience that visitors have in our community. And a big thing that I want to talk about after I get through a couple of the sort of tourism is great slides is a process that we went through to uncover some essence of our community. So just to kind of get the boring things out of the way first, a reminder for some of you who may not be familiar with our organization, we're Visit Franklin. That's the brand name for the Williamson County Convention and Visitors Bureau. So in addition to Franklin, we actually represent all of Williamson County and a little bit of Murray County that goes into Spring Hill. And when we talk about our mission, it's all the stuff you think for tourism, positively impact the economy through tourism spending and all of these things that are super important. But really what we talk a lot about is why do we do it? And really the vision of that is because we believe it is part of our role as an organization to help the community thrive through all of those things. And so we're not the only organization that does that. We're part of a beautiful ecosystem of folks like the Battle of Franklin Trust who contribute to what makes this community thrive. So Nancy asked in the beginning, and I was so impressed that somebody knew this answer so quickly, about where Williamson County ranks in the state. So out of 95 counties, we are in fact number 6. That's based on direct visitor spending. And this is one of my favorite things to say. And one of the things I tell every audience ever is, if you remember only one thing that I ever say, remember that visitors spend a lot of money in our community. And the money they spend does very important things. It puts money directly into lots of amazing small businesses to help them thrive. And then it also generates tax, sales tax and hotel occupancy tax. That sales tax then goes to help offset cost that we as residents would otherwise have to pay in order for our governments to have funding to run things. So the big numbers, visitors in 2023 spent over $1.3 billion with a B. That's more than 3.63 million every single day. Lots of that thanks to folks visiting our historic sites. And then this number right here, the $1,635 saved, that's for every household in Williamson County based on the sales tax generated by visitor spending. But more fun, the thing that I've been talking a lot about lately and what I referenced when we were talking about following up Battle of Franklin Trust is some work that our organization has done over the last almost 2 years now on this idea of community research and tourism branding. And we started with community research because we think it's really important that no matter what we talk about for tourism, that it resonates with our community. Because as our consultant said, if it didn't, the only thing people would ever say is, that's not who we are. That's just what the tourism board says to get people to visit. And so it was really important to us in the process of this project that we really did it in partnership with our community. And I'll talk in a second about all the people we talked to. But the goals were really around how do we capture the essence of who we are so that we can use that to inform everything we do from a tourism marketing standpoint. We also wanted to make sure it was easy for the communities throughout the county to see themselves in our work. We lead with Franklin. It's the county seat. It's where most of our assets are. It's transparently where most of our funding comes from. But our strategy is to bring people into Franklin as the front door to the county and then help spread them throughout the entire community. And in that process, we have to be really good at talking about all of those communities so it can be exciting for people to go and do that and spend more time and spend more money with us. But also some of the stuff that we thought would happen and has happened in ways that have been even more exciting than we could have expected is this idea of not only unifying our voices, but building some consensus and buy-in. And so I mentioned we talked to a lot of people in the process. We had more than 160 listening sessions. A lot of those were one-on-one conversations. Several of them were important focus groups. We talked to 43 elected officials, including all 7 of the mayors who were elected at the time of this work. So that's our county mayor and all 6 mayors of the incorporated areas. We also did a survey that went out to residents. So we had over 1,000 people who live throughout Williamson County respond. And so all of this really was focused on listening to what do our community leaders and our community members say we as a community are. So some insights from that. It's a unique and special place to live. Surprise! You probably knew that already, but we really think it's important to remind people that, it's a place that's family friendly, still feels small town. We dove into that even more because small town is such an interesting loaded word and one that you probably hear a lot. And a little bit of a spoiler is the big thing that we've focused on there is small town is really not about the size of our community. It doesn't matter at what population number are you no longer a small town. It's about the values of a place where people still know each other, where they still have manners, where they still know how to take care of each other. And so we believe there's an opportunity, no matter how big or popular a place we become to live, that we can still feel like a small town in meaningful and special ways. Because, of course, we are exploding with growth and development. What do you associate with Williamson County? These are people who live here. These are obviously tourism things we talk a lot about. Probably not super surprising here either. I think what is most interesting is the high level of alignment, particularly on everything really from farm and live music all the way up. Historic downtowns, almost every single person who took the survey agrees with that. History and historical sites, obviously also a huge part of the experience. People are proud to be associated with Franklin. Also probably not surprising, unique and special place to live. People are proud to live here. What I think is so interesting about this slide is because we asked residents in the process of the survey to identify First, do they live or work in Williamson County? And then where in Williamson County? We were able to differentiate people who live in Franklin versus people who don't live in Franklin. And people who don't live in Franklin are almost as proud to be associated with Franklin as people who do live in Franklin, which I think is a little surprising, but not totally so, because again, it is the county seat. It is an incredibly thriving community that people are proud to be associated with. And it was a little bit of additional validation that even though we are speaking for and with and on behalf of the entire county, leading with Franklin is something that everyone can be excited about. A couple of quotes, there are like a million amazing quotes, and I actually don't remember where all of them came from, but this is one of my absolute favorite quotes that came from somebody in the process that says, "It's not just our history or economy that sets us apart, it's people and relationships." And obviously our history and our economy do set us apart because we have great stories to tell and sights to see, and economy that is incredibly strong and thriving. But none of those things exist or exist in the way we experience them today without the people and the leaders who invested the time and energy and dollars in preserving those historical sites, in telling those stories so that people can hear them and experience them. And the economy is thriving because people made hard decisions around investing in public education and attracting companies to be here. And so it's really not only the history and economy, but it's the people. And so you'll see throughout the process of the brand and the community research, there's a lot of focus on the people experience here. Another thing that I think is really interesting, and part of why people have moved here, but also relevant to people who are coming to visit here, is people really want to share in the values of our community. And you kind of think that's a little bit funny from a tourism standpoint, but we are using this as an opportunity to tell people that you can come here and visit and reconnect with yourself, with your family, with your friends, fill up on this sense of small town community togetherness, and then take that back with you. You can have a part of what we have here. So this is a little bit of, if anyone in this room was part of the survey or the interviews, you know that our consultant asked a lot about if Franklin was a person, if Williamson County was a person, what are some things that you would use, some ways you would describe that person. And so these informed the values of the community from an overarching person standpoint. So kindness and respect, preserving our roots, family and faith, never stop learning, local pride, and community are all things that are incredibly important to those of us who live here. And then there were some insights that came out of the research, this idea that it means something to live here, that change is everywhere. We're not the same, but we're not that different, and that small town is a big opportunity. And what are we gonna do with those things? So we're gonna create a brand platform that you'll see here that shows how all of the communities can be part of it. With change everywhere, we're gonna define the things that won't change, the things we stand for, the things that we want to hold on to no matter how big we grow and no matter what else is built. We're not the same, but we're not that different, focusing on the shared values rather than the things that we are not connected on. And then the idea of small town, like I said before, going beyond the word small town and talking about how the way we treat each other in this community contributes to the quality of life and the experience that people can have. And I'm gonna show, I think I might need to double click, but just before I do that, we created a video as part of this process. It's called a brand essence video. A couple things this video is not. It's not an ad campaign. It's not an exhaustive list of everything you can do and see here. But what it is an opportunity for us to show in 2.5 minutes an emotional connection to the way we view the words we heard back from the community about the community so that we can tell the story. So it's called a brand essence video so that you can feel an essence of how we will be speaking about the community based on what we heard. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that video and I never get tired of it. I usually get a little bit teary. We don't have many dogs in it, I don't think, but there's a lot of kids. So that usually gets some, get some people when you've got the kids in there. That, as I mentioned, is really this overarching idea of our community research and our tourism brand. We weren't looking at making a brand for the community, but we do have a brand for tourism. So I'll just talk you through a couple of quick slides that go into what I was saying earlier about what that means. And so we have a positioning statement. I said a lot of this is about people. When we think about who are we speaking to and what are we telling them about who we are, how we're different, and why it matters, for those who value connections and relationships, we are communities that believe in the power of community, where respect for each other, our history, and our land creates full hearts and fuller stories in a place you can experience life to the fullest. And our brand promise, the thing that we promise a visitor is, we believe in leaving the table full, telling fuller stories, and living life to the absolute fullest. And this is my favorite part. Spend a little time with us and we'll have you feeling the same. Values of the brand, much like we talk about with the community, the idea of being community-minded, collaborative, connected, respectful, and true. The experience of the brand, there it is, this idea of where we've been and who we are. Not only the sites and the history, but the way we tell those stories is so important. Some things are worth preserving, and that extends to land, buildings, characters, stories, things that matter, the way we treat each other. Small town is a big experience. There's a lot of stuff that happens here that's bigger than what you expect for a community of 90,000 people in Franklin. And then really special, you're not supposed to have a favorite, but this idea of the power of community is a favorite of mine. And what I've told people is the way you experience people in this community is, yes, of course, sometimes one-on-one when you're in a restaurant or you're in a shop or you see someone on Main Street, but it's also the power of our community coming together. And if you've ever stood on Main Street during the Veterans Parade or during the Christmas Parade, you can really feel it is a different kind of experience when people come together in this community. And it's emotional and it's exciting and it's something that we're excited about sharing with others and allowing others to be a part of what we have and what we enjoy here. And then from a community alignment standpoint, I mentioned we did all of this for the county. We also did some things that were specific to individual communities. So since we're in Franklin, I'll share with you briefly what we have for Franklin. So the idea of each of the communities aligning to this idea of we believe in the power of us for Franklin is positioning Franklin as the heart of our communities, right? The county seat. It gives the city a platform to highlight people and culture and tell fuller stories of its rich history. Dynamic community driven by compassion, giving back, and preserving what we hold dear. And I think this is a really important way for us to think and talk about Franklin. There's also a little bit of an anthem. So each community got an anthem. The stickers on the outside, I encourage you to grab a sticker, a cup, a booklet that's got all of this information and more. But this idea of Franklin has historic character and memorable characters. This isn't the same old story. Everyone might have a past. Ours just happens to be more colorful than most. Around here, the only things more memorable than our character are the characters who made it. We've always had faith in this place and each other. Some say it's the way it ought to be. To us, it's just the way things are. Welcome to a place that is beyond time and belief. In between where we've been and where we're going, you'll find an amazing present. We've always been ahead of our time because history is something we've never stopped making, which I love and ties so well into the way Battle of Franklin Trust tells the story of the history of time and the role of our community in it. And with that, I would just say we would love for you to stay engaged with us. I know some of you in here are ambassadors already. If you're not, it's a free program that we run that encourages people to be knowledgeable and engaged in tourism in our community.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Anybody have any questions? I've done the ambassador program, and it was loads of fun. I mean, I feel like I've lived here a long time, but I learned new things by becoming an ambassador. And I don't really sign up or go for shifts, but if I see somebody standing on the street and they look a little lost, it doesn't hurt to be able to help them find where it is they're trying to go. So any questions for Maureen? Roger.
It depends on what you're talking about. I mean, visitation to our historic sites is something that is easy for us to count because, of course, there's an admission ticket. And so they've been able to demonstrate growth, and it's been a huge part of the way we talk about our community. I think probably not surprising to anyone is traffic to the factory. Visitors who are coming and experiencing, the more goes in there and the more happens there, the more popular it becomes. So that has been growing. But in communities outside of the area, outside of Franklin specifically, I think our local farm experiences are not only interesting because they're unique to us, but the folks who lead those places are doing an even better than ever job in creating an experience that people want to come for. So I would say that's sort of an unexpected place where things have been growing.
What about music, pilgrimage, and things like that? Those are components.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully you all are keeping an eye out. Pilgrimage blind presale is today, I believe, if you follow
It
them on
doesn't
social
work.
media.
The site does not work currently.
We do not manage
Mindy,
that site.
Mindy has been here going, buy my ticket. So, yeah, it started at 10. Okay. But it does draw a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Yes. And they have a new thing called GA Plus. Okay, so we'll just stay on that. Sorry. I was in the back of the room trying to punch and buy that, but that did not work. So the Visitor Center on 4th Avenue, looking for a unique gift. We're looking for something. Talk a little bit about what's labeled, what's available there.
Looking for the mug that Mindy wanted. I'll note that. Anybody who's shopping for Mindy for Christmas, you can get it at the Visitor Center. Yes, we use that space as an opportunity to have unique branded Franklin things. So everything from blankets, shirts, sweatshirts, all sorts of great things. And I will say this is hot off the presses. We are in the process of collaborating with the folks at Holiday Properties to open a visitor center inside the factory at Franklin.
Oh, that's great.
Coming probably this summer.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here today. Thank you, Maureen. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Don't forget about Breakfast with the Mayors on April 29th. We look forward to seeing you there. And we really appreciate, and I've gone past my slides there. So, yay. We really appreciate you participating with us in this program. Follow us on social media. We have a lot of things going on that we're excited about. We are working with the National Civic League on a Healthy Democracy project. We're one of 2 cities in the country working with them to talk about how and why people engage, and then to look for a way to further engage people. So if you are a first-time visitor, we are very glad you're here, and we will see you again soon. Thanks. Go out and make it a great day. Yeah, it doesn't work.